In this video, I want to talk about my new EP, Tomorrow is Back, which is now released on Bandcamp. And I want to talk about how I mix and master my music to release it online. Just as a disclaimer, I'm no mixing or mastering expert, but I found a way that works for me in true DIY spirit. So I just want to show you in Ableton how I do that, and maybe it's helpful for you as well. So this is the EP, Tomorrow is Back. It contains 6 tracks, and it is kind of... well, maybe I should just play it for you so you can hear what kind of style it is. So yeah, it is kind of dub techno, 4 to the floor, 120, between 120 and 130 BPM. So the track I want to talk about is the first one, and it sounds like this. So it has a very prominent bass. This is the actual original session where I created this track in and did all the sound design. So you can see it has something like 17 tracks, and then there's a lot of empty tracks from the template. So this is kind of how it looks like. It's a bit messy, and before I get to mixing, I save this as a copy, which I call the mixing session, and I will show you how that one looks like. So this is the mixing session of the same track. And basically what I did, I cleaned it up. So I removed all the tracks that don't have anything on them. I removed all the muted clips, or at least most of them, these kind of deactivated clips. In terms of mixing, what I did is I went through each track and looked at the frequency spectrum. So I looked in solo at one track and I played it and see where are the frequencies of that instrument. So if you look at this arp, there's a low cut of 300 hertz. That's because below 300 hertz, nothing really happens. So I just want to cut it out to make sure there's no buildup of rumble over the different instruments. So the first thing I do for each track is to go through the frequency spectrum. The second thing I do is the volume of the different instruments. So usually I start with the kick and the bass and make sure that they are on the right level. I also always put a utility on the bass where I mono the bass. And then of course the third thing is panning. So I want to create some kind of stereo spread. The bass and the kick are mono in the middle. And then I want to have some elements that are more left and right to create a wider picture. So those are the basic steps I do for mixing. And then on the master bus, I have this mix strip. So there's a couple of effects that I have. I have the same one in the composition session. When I compose, I usually have the gain of the limiter at 3 or even at 5. But when I export it for mastering, I put the gain on 0. So in the mix strip, the first thing is a utility where I have the bass mono activated, so just to make sure that everything under 80 Hertz is a mono. The second element is a compressor where I just lightly compress the entire track, not too much, but just a little bit to tame the dynamics. And then the third thing is a limiter. And as I said, when I'm composing and mixing, I put the limiter at 3 or at 5, but when I export, I put it at 0 because I will do the limiting or pushing, making the volume louder in the mastering session. So basically, when I'm satisfied with the mix, and usually when I mix it, I leave it for a day or a couple of days and then get back to it just to hear if there's something that really stands out, like the snare's too loud or the bass is not loud enough, stuff like that. And then basically what I do is I export the track as a stereo WAV file, and then I go to the mastering step. So this is the mastering session. As you can see, it's just a file with one main track where I put all the different exported songs. Then I have the second track is a reference track, and sometimes I put in a song that I use as a reference for mastering, mainly for the loudness. In this case, I didn't do that. And then the last one here is just my voiceover for this video. So basically, I put all the tracks in the right order after each other. They are all unwarped because they have different tempos. So that's something to really be aware of. I don't have any effects on this actual channel, only on the master channel. So here I have my mastering strip. And the first one is a utility with a mono bass, an EQ, a compressor, and then the FabFilter Pro L2 limiter. So that's this one. In this case, in this session, I actually didn't use the EQ and the compressor. I only used the limiter and I put it at 5. And one of the other things I do is either with volume automation or just go into the actual file and adjust the gain where needed. In this case, I didn't do it, even though the first track seems to be very compressed and loud already. But yeah, basically in this mastering, I want to make sure that the tracks align in terms of volume with each other. And then from here on, I export it. And I always export it at 48,000 hertz, a WAV file, bit depth 24, no dither. And that's the track, the file that I upload to Bandcamp. So yeah, that was it for this video. This is how I do DIY mixing and mastering myself in Ableton. The only plugin that I use is the FabFilter limiter. For the rest, I use the devices that come with Ableton, the EQ, the compressor, just because I think they're pretty good and it works for me. Let me know how you mix and master your music if you do it yourself and if you have any tips. Don't forget to check out my new EP on Bandcamp. I will link it down in the description. See you in the next one.